myself a super active person, but I do enjoy working out and going on runs now and then. Just to stay in somewhat decent shape. My friend Jay is way more consistent with it. He's always in shape and kind of acts as my unofficial trainer. Jay and I used to run late at night around my neighborhood. It's a safe area and most streets are well lit, so we never really felt in danger until about 2 months ago. After what happened that night, we haven't run there since. Let me explain how the neighborhood is laid out. There's one main road with several smaller roads branching off from it. Eventually, they all loop back to the main road, which leads to a dirt path cutting through local farms and bigger properties. That path becomes important later. That night, we decided to take an unusual running route, one that cut through the woods via a narrow path, then onto one of the side roads, which we'd follow back to the main road. From there, we'd run all the way down to the dirt path and then head back home. We were just trying to change things up since our usual run was starting to feel too easy. We started from my house and jogged into the woods, talking about high school drama, laughing and joking around. It was a pretty normal run until we heard footsteps behind us. At first, we didn't think anything of it. That path is fairly popular. People walk their dogs, cut through to get to other parts of the neighborhood. But as we kept running, the footsteps kept following us, and they were matching our pace. When we sped up, the steps got faster. When we slowed down, they did too. Now we were nervous. Still, we figured we were just being paranoid. Maybe it was someone trying to keep a safe distance behind us. We reached the end of the wooded path and stepped out onto the road. Immediately, we turned around. No one was there. Jay and I gave each other that classic, "Did you hear that too?" look. We brushed it off, half laughing, and kept going. We took the side road to the main road and ran all the way down until it turned into the dirt path at the far edge of the neighborhood. That path has no street lights, just trees lining both sides and pitch darkness ahead. The vibe changed instantly. It felt eerie, but we pushed through, running about a mile down before deciding to turn around and head back. As we turned, I saw something, a shadow moving fast, darting into the trees on the left side of the road. Stopped. "Jay," I said, "I swear I just saw someone jump into the trees." Jay laughed it off. "You're just tired, dude. We've been running a while. Probably nothing." And honestly, I wanted to believe him, so we kept going, back toward the main road. We passed the spot where I'd seen the figure, no problem. But just as we were about to reach the main road again, we heard rustling behind us. We turned around, and there he was. A figure stood in the middle of the dirt road, about 20 feet away. He was facing away from us, wearing a black hoodie, dirty ripped khaki pants, and black shoes. He wasn't moving, just standing there. My chest tightened. I've never felt fear like that in my life. Jay took a step forward and called out, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" And then the man started laughing. It wasn't normal laughter. It was this twisted, cackling, skin-crawling sound that made every hair on my body stand on end. We froze. Then the man slowly turned around. He was pale, unbelievably pale. His wide eyes locked onto us, and the laughter stopped instantly. He just stared, no expression, just watching. That glare is burned into my memory. Jay and I looked at each other, no words needed. We ran, full sprint, 2 straight miles, faster than we'd ever run before. And somewhere behind us, we heard that laugh again, echoing through the trees. When we finally reached my house, I threw up in the yard from how hard I'd been running. We rushed inside, locked every single door, slammed the garage shut, and just sat there, still trying to process what had happened. We haven't run at night in my neighborhood since. If you're someone who runs at night, please stick to well-lit areas and always bring a friend. You never know who or what is out there, waiting in the dark. Back when I was a high school junior, I ran cross-country and track. I wasn't the fastest on my team, but I had endurance. I loved running alone, zoning out and losing myself in the rhythm of my feet pounding the ground. One summer, a woman who lived in a quiet, rural neighborhood near a forest preserve hired me to run her hyperactive puppy, Izzy. She paid me $10 a run. Easy money. Izzy got her exercise, and I got to stay in shape while earning extra cash. The area was mostly scattered houses, abandoned farms, a cemetery, and even the remnants of a long-disbanded cult's commune. My parents had always warned me about running alone in secluded areas, but I figured I was fast enough to outrun anything, until one evening changed that forever. It was just before dusk when I took Izzy out for a longer run. The sun was low, casting a deep orange glow through the treetops. Shadows stretched across the road, and the silence around us was thick. I could only hear my own breathing, Izzy's panting, and the rhythmic thud of my shoes against the pavement. Occasionally a bird fluttered or a distant dog barked. But as we went deeper, even those sounds disappeared. About 2 miles in, we reached a long stretch of road with dense forest on both sides. That's when Izzy stopped. She stiffened, ears perked, tail tucked, body completely still. A low whimper escaped her throat. I followed her gaze into the woods. At first, I saw nothing but trees swaying slightly in the breeze. Then, between 2 trunks, I saw him, a man. He was short, maybe in his 30s, wearing a hat pulled low over his face, a thick jacket that didn't match the warm weather, and gloves. His eyes were locked on me. He didn't move, didn't blink. Something about the way he stood, half hidden, watching, instantly set off every alarm in my body. It felt wrong, like he wasn't just some hiker or hunter passing through, like he shouldn't be there at all. I nodded politely, trying to stay cool, and started jogging again. My heart was already picking up speed, and not from the run. A few steps later, Izzy stopped again. This time, she was trembling, her leash tight in my grip. I turned around. He had moved. He was now standing right at the tree line, just a few feet from the road. Closer, staring. His head was tilted now, slightly, as if studying me. He wanted me to know he'd moved. He wanted me to see it. I felt a wave of ice roll down my spine. My body wanted to run, but I forced myself to stay calm. Maybe he was just some creep trying to scare me. Maybe if I ignored him, he'd leave. So, I kept running. I looked over my shoulder every few seconds. At first, it seemed like he was gone. The woods looked empty again, but then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement. I turned back, and there he was, sprinting straight at me. His arm was raised, and in his hand was a butcher's cleaver. My breath caught in my throat. Every instinct in my body screamed at once. and I bolted. Adrenaline surged through me like lightning. I didn't even think. I just ran, faster than I ever had in any race, my lungs burning, my grip tight on Izzy's leash as she struggled to keep up. I didn't look back until I couldn't stand not knowing. He was still chasing us. His face was twisted in pure rage, his mouth slightly open like he was snarling. The blade in his hand caught the last golden light of the day. But the way he was running, it wasn't natural. His arms flailed in these jerky, wild motions. His legs moved too fast, almost like they didn't belong to him. And the most terrifying thing, he wasn't breathing. I could hear my own gasps. Izzy's panting, even the leaves in the trees, but not him. Just the sound of his boots pounding, the pavement getting closer. That silence was worse than the screaming. We reached a neighborhood, thank God, and I darted between houses, zigzagging through yards, hoping to lose him. My legs were on fire, my chest heaving, but I didn't dare stop. I finally ducked behind a shed with Izzy, pressed myself against the rough wooden wall, and listened. Silence. My heart pounded in my ears as I slowly turned my head. He was there, standing at the top of the hill, silhouetted against the darkening sky. The cleaver dangled from his hand. He just stood there, staring. No more rage, no more running, just blank. Like he had lost interest, like the game was over. We locked eyes. 1 minute passed, then another. A pair of headlights appeared in the distance, cutting through the dark. The second they did, he turned without hesitation and walked back into the woods. Gone. I didn't move for a long time. When I finally did, I took the longest possible route back to the woman's house, sneaking through the yards to avoid the main road. My hands were still shaking as I collected my payment and acted like nothing had happened. I didn't tell her. I didn't tell my parents, because if I had, they would have never let me run alone again. I don't know who he was. Maybe he was connected to that old cult. Maybe just some drifter, or maybe something else entirely. All I know is I never ran in that direction again. This story spans nearly 7 years, so I'll try to keep it as clear and to the point as possible. I live in a suburban neighborhood surrounded by rural countryside. It's beautiful. Open fields, winding country roads, and peaceful silence, but it's incredibly secluded. Without a car, it's nearly impossible to get anywhere. As a result, I've often felt confined here. That feeling only got worse during quarantine. The first time I remember seeing something suspicious, I was 9 years old. My little brother, who was 7, and I were walking our dogs near the front of our street, close to the main road. We were talking, not really paying much attention, when suddenly someone called out to us, "Hey, come here." A big white SUV was parked at the start of our street, and a man had his arm out the window, motioning for us to come over. I still remember it clearly. A tall white guy with curly blonde hair. My little brother actually started to walk toward him, but I grabbed his arm and stopped him. I've always been a paranoid person, and I'd heard too many horror stories about kids getting lured into vans, never to be seen again. I turned us around and started leading us back to our house, watching the man the entire time. As soon as he realized we weren't coming over, he turned his car around and drove off. I told my mom about it when we got home, but she brushed it off, saying he probably just needed directions. It scared me, sure, but I didn't really think about it much again. At least, not until years later. A year later, on Halloween 2014, there was another incident. A black sedan was seen slowly following trick-or-treaters down our street. When one of the parents approached it, the driver tried to run them over and sped off. The license plates had been removed. I didn't see it firsthand, but the adults in the neighborhood were talking about it for days. I got another one of those "don't talk to strangers" lectures. People were especially on edge at the time. The murder of Hannah Graham had just happened nearby. Fast forward to the summer of 2018. Some neighbors went on vacation and asked me to pet sit their dog. I had to stop by 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and night, to let the dog out. Their house was located off the main road, to the right of our neighborhood. I could either walk to the end of my street and take a right, or cut through the woods and enter through their backyard. The wooded path was faster but dense and hard to navigate, so I usually just stuck to the road. One night I was gaming with some friends and lost track of time. I suddenly remembered I hadn't let the dog out for his last walk. It was already past 10 p.m., so I rushed over. It was pitch black outside. My flashlight and the stars above were the only sources of light. Luckily, the dog had held it in. I let him out, waited, brought him back inside, and was about to leave when I noticed a black sedan parked next to the driveway. I was pretty sure it hadn't been there when I arrived. There were no nearby houses, and the owners weren't due back for a few more days. After standing there for a few minutes, unsure what to do, I decided to play it safe and cut through the woods. I got home without issue. For the rest of the week, I stuck to the woods whenever I went over to check on the dog. I never saw the black sedan again. Those incidents alone might not seem like much, but what happened recently has made me question whether they were all connected. I run track for my school. Since quarantine shut down practices, I started running solo every day. My street is short, so I often jog out onto the main road and down connecting side roads. For a while, everything was normal. The runs were peaceful and relaxing. But about a month ago, something changed. One afternoon, as I was jogging back home on the main road, I noticed a white SUV across the street, moving at the same pace I was. That road isn't heavily trafficked, and cars usually drive fast through it. So it struck me as odd that this one was keeping pace so closely. I turned down a small side street that ended in a cul-de-sac. The SUV didn't follow. I ran to the end of the circle, looped back, and went home. But the next day, it happened again. This time, the SUV was waiting at the beginning of a driveway and pulled out after me once I passed by. It followed me for about a mile before I turned down the same cul-de-sac, where it again drove off. This continued every day for 10 straight days. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe the person driving had a schedule that just happened to line up with my run. To test that theory, I went running an hour later than usual. The SUV wasn't there, but the next day, it was back, following me again. I was officially creeped out. Still, I kept it to myself because I didn't want my parents to forbid me from running. After all, the driver hadn't actually done anything. On the 11th day, everything escalated. I turned down the usual side street and noticed a black sedan parked at the far end. That wasn't unusual. There were a few homes on the street. But as I got closer, I spotted something that made my blood run cold. Beneath the car, barely visible in the shadows, was the outline of a person. They were curled up on the far side, of the vehicle, clearly trying to avoid being seen. I froze. Then I turned and ran the other way, glancing over my shoulder constantly to make sure no one followed. When I reached the main road, I saw the white SUV. This time, it wasn't driving off like before. It was waiting right at the top of the street. I was boxed in. Panic set in, but I figured I'd rather deal with the devil I knew than walk past a hidden figure beneath a car. So I sprinted toward the SUV. As I got within a few feet, a man suddenly jumped out and lunged at me. I bolted. Months of training kicked in and I outpaced him with ease, my heart pounding harder than it ever had before. As I ran, he shouted after me, "Wait, I just want to talk." "Yeah, right." I responded with a very clear two-finger salute and kept running. I didn't stop until I made it all the way home. That night, I finally told my mom everything. She called the police, and I gave them a full report. Unfortunately, without a license plate, there wasn't much they could do. They said they'd look into it, but nothing's come of it so far. Since then, I've had a lot of time to think, and I've started connecting the dots. These men, whoever they are, have been trying to abduct a child from our street for years. The white SUV, the black sedan, the man with the curly blonde hair. The same guy who tried to lure me into his car when I was 9 is the same one who chased me down the road nearly a decade later. There are a lot of kids in my neighborhood, and I hate thinking about what could have happened to someone less cautious than me. I still have nightmares about that night. The way he chased me, the way his voice echoed behind me, the way it all tied together. And I know one thing for certain now. This was never just bad luck. They've been watching and waiting.